Welcome to another episode of the Wealth Building Strategies podcast. And today I am joined by an amazing person that I'm so glad to have wanted to come on this podcast, Sabrina Guler. Welcome, Sabrina.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, for the listeners out there that don't know Sabrina, you've been living under a rock. Sabrina and Techvestor has making headways through the Airbnb real estate market and making some tremendous gains. Last year, you guys did about 81 Airbnb properties. So congratulations. It makes my head spin to how your company is operating and how you guys are managing 80 Airbnbs in just 1 year. So congratulations.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you're talking to the right person. I lead all of the operational infrastructure at Techvestor. And right now we have, I think, 15 people on the ops team, all who work super hard. We're very grateful for the team. We could not even come close to that number without our team. But yeah, we've done 81 properties across 9 different markets, and it's been a fun ride.
Incredible. Yeah. So let me read your bio here. I just gives you some more context to our listeners here. So Sabrina leads Techvestor's operational design infrastructure. She's an Airbnb super host with 8 years in real estate and tech. She previously managed AirPods product line for Apple, taking it from concept to market and multi-billion-dollar revenue stream. So wow. And yeah, over the last couple of years, you've built your own Airbnb portfolio, and then also helping passive investors get in on this fund one, and then now we're launching fund two. So I guess let's get to know Sabrina. So how did you get into Airbnb and real estate?
Yeah, that's super long-winded answer. I'll try and make it concise, but I've been toggling in and out of real estate for about, gosh, since like 2014. So I'm originally from New York. I'm born and raised East Coast. I lived in the city up until I was 22. When I was 20, I had my real estate license, and I've always liked real estate. I've always been intrigued by it. I've always loved design, architecture. The use of space has always been very interesting to me. I was in real estate for a little bit in New York and decided I wanted to go to school. So at 22, I went to school. I went to Arizona State. Got my degree in marketing. I had no intention of getting back into real estate, at least as a career. I thought maybe I would buy real estate later on or like dabble into it. Got into marketing, accidentally got into tech. I think my background's in project management. So I think a lot of people in project management kind of fall into it. A lot of people don't go to school for PM work. I got myself into project management, worked for a few tech companies, one of them being Apple for a few years. Got into the AirPod space. I had a hybrid role. It was like hardware engineering, software engineering, and I was still technically in project management. And then during that time, because I worked at Apple and, I would get RSUs, right, restricted stock units, I wanted to diversify my own portfolio. And I started getting back into learning about real estate. I think a lot of W-2 investors kind of fall into this as well, right? They get on bigger pockets, they start going on YouTube, they learn from, all the multifamily investors, all the people that talk about how they transitioned from W-2. So I followed that path, right? Like my path was to fire. Like that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to retire early and build my passive income. But I wanted to do it myself. I didn't want to go the LP route initially. I've always I have a type A personality. It's always been like I'm a hands-on person. So my parents lived in Arizona, and I used to visit all the time, and I wanted to buy something that I could use part-time. And I was, Phoenix was on an upswing market, and it's been like that since probably 2016. It started going back up again, and I bought 2019. So I got lucky, right? Because I caught a market right before it exploded. But I bought a few properties during that time. I furnished them. I didn't really know what I was doing, to be honest with you. I mean, I knew what I was doing from a numbers perspective. Like the numbers made sense. But in terms of design and data and markets, in real estate, they say like if you're going to buy, you buy in your backyard if it makes sense, right? So a lot of people try to buy or they try to Airbnb their first home. And one thing led to another. It ended up being a hobby. I started going on TikTok and talking about it. I started doing some consulting. I learned a lot from doing consulting online, just from learning about different markets that I wasn't exposed to. And it gave me really well-rounded knowledge in the space. Like I kind of became an expert in this because I was designing people's homes for them in all these different markets. And I just gained like a heavy operational background in this space that not a lot of people had. Because I think with Airbnb, you're exposed to one market for the most part. You're not exposed to like 20 different markets. And because I had been doing consulting, I had learned about why hot tubs do well in like Asheville and why a sectional couch does well in like Austin, Texas, even markets that like I wasn't even buying in. And then by the time I had reunited with Steve, my business partner, it was kind of a perfect storm. Like he had the right background to lead finance and spearhead that side of the company. And I was like, hey, I've already seen, hundreds of Airbnbs across like 50 different markets. So that's kind of how we joined, and that's how I got in the space.
Yeah, that's excellent. I really like how you emphasized there's kind of like a fork in the road for all of us in real estate. And so your story, my story is very similar, along with other type A personalities that want to really be active. And so same type of thing for me. I had a W-2 job, but from the get-go, it was always gearing towards being in real estate full time, leaving the W-2. But there's a lot of people out there, a lot of listeners that really enjoy their job and their W-2. And thus, the reason why we do what we do also is to allow them to keep their jobs, and then they can invest passively with us.
Oh yeah, I always joke around. I used to be an active investor. Now I'm like, please. I'm a LP in many deals, and I appreciate solid operators. I
Yep.
appreciate people
Yep.
who know what they're doing. They lead the process, similar to us, right? So we offer what I now look for in LP deals myself.
Yeah, absolutely. The same thing for me. I'm GP on deals, and then this last December, I actually had my big 401k built up for my engineering job that I worked with Chevron for a while, and I just completely got out of all my stocks and rolled it over to solo 401k, and now my solo 401k is diversified in many other passive LP deals all across the country, and I love it. So I love being hands-on my deals, but like you just said, I love being hands-off, and that's how I stumbled across you guys in Techvestor too. Is the deal came to me, and it was for Fund One. It was I saw it, wow, diversified across 10 different markets, Airbnb, and I said, wow. Instantaneously, I was like, I want in on that because I don't want to do any of the design, any of the market analysis, any of the maintenance or management of an Airbnb. Oh, that's great. Let Sabrina handle all that. I'll send you my money, and I'm passively invested. So that's I invested passively in Fund One.
Totally, totally. I think there's definitely a myth in some aspects of real estate where it's quote passive. I think
Yep.
Airbnb
Yep.
is you have to be very active. It's a business more than anything.
Absolutely.
It's majority hospitality, right? It's you have to be very active. It's not like multifamily where you have issues once every blue moon. I mean, things have to be replenished. You have to be on top of things. The status of your homes have to be constantly checked on. So it's definitely an active investment.
So walk us through this connection back with Seif, and where did you get this idea to say, all right, we've done a couple Airbnbs, but let's go for 80? I mean, where did that come from?
I think yeah, I wish I could say like in the beginning we like knew or we knew exactly what we were gonna do. I think we knew what we wanted to. Like I think the vision was to do something like this, but no one had ever done this before. Like, I mean, again, we were three businesses technically in one, right? So we raise our own capital, we operate internally, and we manage. And a lot of people do those things separately. So when we started the business, we first we were JVing a bunch of deals, and him and I were getting our feet wet with all these different Airbnbs in different markets. And then people actually, like some of our investors that we had done these joint ventures with, they were kind of curious about what the other joint ventures looked like, because they were all in different markets. And what ended up happening is they were like, you know what, I would rather open up my risk to be blended rather than
Right.
in one
Exactly.
home. So,
Exactly.
and honestly, we did too, right, as investors. So we decided to go the fund route. We never anticipated growing this fast. I mean, again, that was the goal over a longer period of time. But I think when you grow this fast, there's always challenges, especially operationally, right? Like you can raise all the capital and then the operations team has to match to size, right? So that's kind of where, we had to be pretty aggressive in that sense, like hire people. I was on a plane 3 times a month, right? Just to go to our markets and make sure that things were happening and things were on track the way that we were projecting. It was a really aggressive year. So again, it wasn't really anticipated. That was the goal, just over a longer period of time.
Yeah. So let's dive into a day in the life of Sabrina. And I think before the podcast, you're saying that you're launching on Airbnb 2 to 3 properties per week, and I can't not fathom that. So I've been investing in real estate since 2005, and I'll do a deal, flip, then multifamily, and then we were doing about 3 or 4 luxury renovations a couple of years ago, and even during that time, I could only do 2 or 3 at a time on like over a period of 4 to 6 months, and so my wife and we would do the design, and we would, so now I'm putting my design hat on, is towards the end of the end of the renovation, we would have to get that property perfect for pictures to put on MLS. So the design had to be perfect. The furniture had to be perfect when we would stage the property, and all of this coordination and logistics would have to be perfect just to get that perfect picture of the property for listing. And I can't imagine doing 2 or 3 of those per week. I could do 2 or 3 per month. So I don't know, give a day in the life of Sabrina and how you pull that design and the furnishing. Yeah, let's just start with design and furnishing first.
Yeah. So this whole thing definitely grew to be what it is today. We didn't start off this way. I mean, our process has been super iterative. So right now we get a home, and it comes from our acquisitions team, and we know well in advance what we're doing with the property. So our eyes are on the property before it closes. The operations team usually gives some kind of an opinion, like, this is the cost of a new roof, or this is what it's going to be to convert a bedroom space from a 4 to a 5, right? We usually, all of our homes require some construction, even if the home is perfectly flipped. It needs accent walls, wallpaper. Our supply closets need to have locks in them. We install Ring cameras. So every home needs some kind of handiwork, even if it's minimal. So we know the scope of that well in advance. By the time, the inspection wraps up and the appraisal wraps up, we know where we're going to land with budget, plus or minus X amount of percent. But we're usually, after doing 80 of these, we have a pretty good idea of where we're going to land. Operations team has quite a few project managers. Each project manager has X amount of homes. And right now they're territory based. So, if they're, one project manager will work all of Florida. And they have, and we do that because it's economies of scale, right? The more people that we have in one market, we have one handy guy that goes all to the same houses, but that takes over a long period of time. It makes more sense, but to build that infrastructure in a market where you don't have it is hard. Because usually those people have their clients and they don't really care who you are. You have to build a relationship. So operations is a very labor people focused side of the business. And in the last 2 years, if you look at all these different themes, right? You had supply chain issues, you had COVID, you had a hurricane, right? Like we deal with all these environmental issues that can never be anticipated. I mean, you can buffer out, you can predict some things, right? And sometimes we come super early with projects. We're like, oh my God, awesome. We've launched a property in 4 weeks. And then sometimes something will happen. Like we had a property where the cabinets that we ordered for this house got caught in the hurricane and they were ruined, actually. Like water ruined the warehouse in which the cabinets were being held in, which we can't predict, right? So each project manager has a home, and once the property closes, we get to work, and usually starts with some construction work, some handiwork. The design is also figured out well in advance, so we look at themes. We're a very data-driven company. I'm sure Steve and Taylor you have mentioned that on your other podcast. So we look at, it's not, because I will say with Airbnb, it's a very the people who are doing this not as a business are very emotional about it. And there's something very endearing to that. Like when you go to a little bed and breakfast and you could tell like it's owned by a mom and pop and it's very cute. But you know that it's not a business at the end of the day. And so we look at like the conversion of a hot tub, or like the amount of seats at a fire pit, and like, what people gradually gravitate towards on Airbnb, because at the end of the day, it's clickbait. It's marketing. I think the average person spends 7 seconds on Airbnb. They go through 4 photos and they make a decision. Like subconsciously, they're looking for something on their vacation. And so we try to aim for that. So that design is figured out way in advance. By the time we get to work, by the time we do construction, by the time we finish everything, it's a pretty well premeditated plan. Whatever happens in that time period, we try to be very on top of. But like I've mentioned, like we're in the business of construction and operations. So there's always it could come early, it could come late. And yeah, my day-to-day is managing a ton of people, a ton of timelines, a ton of budgets. And honestly, it's a lot of
how many people are in your team?
I think right now in ops, we have total 15.
Wow. And so that's divided up between construction and well as do you have additional designers too that are procurement people that are picking out the things online to buy? Because that takes a lot of time. I noticed the amount of detail on your artwork and the different things you have in the property. So who buys all that? Procures all that?
So no, actually, so 15 people just internally. So these people work just internally. Externally, I mean, we probably have hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, every market we have maybe 2 or 3 designers, and we have our own like warehouses where we host furniture and people checking in for deliveries for like bottles of shampoo and just like the little things that you like never think about. Yeah. And then we have our tradespeople. So people the painters and the muralists and the wallpaper, and it's never the same person. I've never had one person who does it all. You're always reliant on multiple people who have, different skills in the business. I mean, I've had amazing painters who like scoff at me when I ask them to do wallpaper, because it's not their thing. So yeah, externally we work with a lot of, I'd say hundreds of people out externally, but internally we have about 15 people.
So how much design input do you personally do on each of these properties? Are you just overseeing the designers right now at this stage, or is Sabrina's touch on some of these properties?
I'm pretty hands-on. Okay. I mean, hands-on to the ability that we also need to scale. I think there's a give and take, right? But every property I look at, we have overlays. So we have like an exact plan on like where the hot tub's going to go, where the mini putt golf is going to go, where the outdoor games are going to go. Like we know those things and we hand that off to a stager. I'd say a lot of designers are not Airbnb business forward. So they're not going to know the ROI of cornhole being to the left or to the right. Right. So I have definitely an opinion and a big calculated say on why things go where they go. And I try to manage that across the team.
Fantastic. Now, okay, so let's talk about the hospitality part of it. I guess what does Techvestor do to maintain these properties? So we got lots of turnover coming in and out, and so that turnover, like that gives me a headache too. So people that are real estate investors, they even in multifamily, like, hey man, I want a long 1 year, 2 year lease, and even on the commercial office retail space, we're like, I want a 5-year lease, I want a 10-year lease, and so what gives me a headache is thinking about constant turnover, people coming in and out and out. How do you guys manage that?
Yeah, so we have like a pretty good ticket system. We track our issues, and I mean, that's a whole other ball game, right? Like
Oh
when
yeah.
you buy, we've bought certain hammocks or something that just break, and we're like, okay, we have to keep track of, like, we just won't buy those hammocks again because they break in every house. Or we've bought, but we used to buy wooden beds. Now we don't even buy wooden beds. We buy metal frames because, like, they break. So we have a pretty good history of like why things work the way that they work. Also, we're heavily tracked by reviews, right? So if
Yeah.
someone says a bed sucks, it probably sucks. So, so we haven't had that yet. We haven't had that yet with bedding. Luckily, we've picked good mattresses. But I'm just saying, like, in general, with reviews, the market will tell you if a space was well designed, if someone loved a space, if
Right.
something was comfy, if it looked like the pictures, right? And so we're tracking heavily what that looks like between reviews, customer input, messages. Our cleaners track everything. We have pretty solid checklists. Like, a cleaner will go in and be like, this mug was broken or this was stained. And we replenish those items pretty much based on like the data that's coming back to us on a daily basis. So
Fantastic. Did you ever think or imagine yourself in this role of managing, a couple dozen full-time employees plus hundreds of people? Did you see yourself heading down this path?
definitely not, but it's honestly, it was such a perfect fit because I came from project management, and that's essentially like what I'm doing again, just in my own business, which is super nice, just a
Yeah.
different environment and something I'm super passionate about, something I've loved since I was like 20. It's funny coming back full circle in life,
Yeah.
8, 9 years later, and you're using your skills, but with something that you love doing. So
So kind of random question here for you. What trends are you seeing in this market, Airbnb market? I guess what you're in it every day. What are you seeing? What's the public want? What's your feeling from people out there, the average person that's wanting to rent in these places? What are you seeing?
I think people are looking for consistency in these homes. It's funny because after like a year of being revenue producing and seeing all of these properties come to life, it's interesting seeing some of our customers in some markets are other customers in other markets, which means we're hitting that same person, that target guest. But I think people are looking for consistency. I think Airbnb kind of has a stigma, like you don't know what you're going to get. There's so many different types of Airbnbs. You can stay in like a tree house, you can stay in like a submarine, and then you have us, right? We have houses. So in our niche, we focus on 3 to 5 bedroom homes, I'd say on average. In our niche, I think, cater to families in bigger groups. People are looking for games, people are looking for comfy beds, people are looking for entertainment spaces. A lot of our homes, people don't leave the house. They just like to stay in, they buy drinks, they turn on the fire pit. So I think people are looking for like functional spaces that look like the pictures, that are safe, they're comfortable, they don't have to worry about parking or where things are. Just everything is what it says it's going to be, which it's almost like that's the exception in Airbnb, not the rule. We like to be the rule.
Right.
So I don't know if that's where you were going with
Oh
market.
yeah,
Is the
yeah, just yeah,
it's a love
absolutely. Yeah, my experience as a guest in multiple Airbnbs, VRBO. So I've actually never stayed at an Airbnb. I've stayed only at VRBOs, Verbos, I think is how they say it now. But I when my wife and I we had our first baby, and that was back in 2011. Every time we would travel, we would choose to stay at a home instead of a hotel. It felt more comfortable having a baby that could scream and cry and make all kinds of noise, and you don't have to worry about bothering the other guests at a hotel. And it's so much easier. And then as we start having more children, now we have 5 children. It's literally every time we travel, we stay at a VRBO. So in my mind, I'm like, I can't even fathom going back to hotels and traveling. Whenever I travel by myself, I'll stay at a hotel, like for conferences and stuff, just because that's where the conference is at. But even then, I'm like, man, I'd rather stay at a home. It's just so much more comfortable. But that's just,
it's
I'm surprised.
lonelier.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm surprised people haven't done what you're doing right now in your business. I'm surprised that there's not other companies and we don't have any competitors. This is awesome that you guys are one of the first big companies to do this. And to me, this is the way of the future. I'm surprised there's not more institutional players doing this.
I think there will be. I think it's a natural progression of people starting to. I mean, when we started, there was literally no operational infrastructure. It was
Right.
nearly impossible for me to find designers.
Yeah.
I designed probably our first 10 homes
Yeah.
entirely myself.
Yeah.
And now, we're finding people in the space, and it's awesome to see that. I think there's a lot of room for people to make money in this space, but it's a hard business. Talking about market, right? I think there's a lot of oversaturation with mediocre looking
Right.
properties.
Right.
You're looking at the same furniture, the same couch, the same white walls. There's nothing really that's like on the table to offer you if you're a family looking for a place between this house and this house. So we try to be like that house, be like, oh, I'll spend an extra $100 a night if my kids can play tennis. I can get in the hot tub. I have a place to work while
Yep.
my wife, we try to make the space as functional and as multidimensional as possible just to stand out. And that's
Right.
kind of like I don't want to say it's like our secret sauce operationally, but that's what we focus on. And it's interesting because if I were to like just pull up Airbnb right now in any of our markets, like if I pulled up Scottsdale, right? Scottsdale has hundreds of Airbnbs. And I think out of the 10 properties that we have there, 7 of them, if you were to put Scottsdale, no dates, 7 of them pop up as the first on the first page as highly ranked, right?
Right.
So we're doing something right. But I do think oversaturation is a thing. I don't think it's going to go anywhere at all. I think because more people are interested in getting in the space,
But it all comes down to the design and the amenities. And from a guest standpoint, I'm okay with paying 2 to 3 times more for that little weekend or those handful of days than the mediocre ones. And so actually our favorite vacation place is actually in the panhandle of Florida. I love the beaches there, but I like Seaside and Rosemary Beach the best. And the homes there to be rented out on VRBO and Airbnb, they we choose them because they have the ping pong table, the bocce ball, the pool table. They have everything imaginable so that we can literally stay in that place, just look outside the ocean, and everything is there. And then they have the pool, the private pool for the kids. And so it's like it's its own like full all include. It's not all inclusive, but it's like it feels like an all inclusive resort where you don't have to go to the big Rio or the Sandals down in Cancun and be bothered by a bunch of people. You have that full, everything is there in that home. And yeah, I have paid tens of thousands of dollars premium just to have that experience just for a couple days. It's interesting. So that I appreciate, and that's why I invested with you guys on the first deal, on the first fund, because of the amenities that you provide and the design. It's incredible.
Yeah, we definitely try to pay attention to the little things. I mean, even like so we're in the Panhandle, we're in Panama City Beach. And I remember when we first, got into that market, we were like, okay, what do people care about? We were like, great, we think it's worth spending, whatever it was, $500 more. I'm just making up that number just to provide 10 beach chairs
Yeah.
so that when you literally get off the plane and you go in with your family, you can just put all the stuff into a cart and go to the beach. That's important to me. Who wants to go to
Absolutely.
Walmart,
Yeah.
pick up all that stuff? A
Yep.
hotel's not going to offer that.
Yep.
So when we get into these
Exactly.
markets, we try to be like, what can people do so that they don't have to leave the home?
Yeah.
They can just
Even
get off the plane.
it's even the beach toys too. Like just something so
Yeah,
simple. Like I don't want to bring that on vacation. Like it needs to be right there. Yeah. Exactly.
totally.
Exactly. All right. So let's talk about for the future for 2023. We got this fund, and so full disclosure to the listeners on there, I'm actually a fund manager partnering with you guys to help bring passive investors to partner with us on this for Fund Two. So I guess what are your plans for Fund Two?
To just scale and continue to be what we're really good at. I think anytime you start a business, it's kind of figuring out what that is. Like when we started, we were like, okay, we need to tailor everything operationally. We now know that we buy 3 to 5 bedroom homes in these markets. We're planning on expanding to new markets, right? But we're also we've already scaled in the current markets that we're at. So I think it's just more scaling, growing, putting best practices to things. Honestly, like all the boring things. I wish I could tell you like something new and exciting, but it's just continuing to be really good at what we're doing and to make sure that we're punctual, we're on time, we have the right training to be able to hire more people. We can, jump into new markets without feeling like, we have to start all over again. So I think it's all those little things that allow us to just to be better and stronger and faster.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Sabrina, for putting in all this hard work so that passive investors like myself on Fund One and other passive investors can benefit from this awesome asset class. So great work. So where can the listeners find Sabrina?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm usually pretty responsive on there. Currently not on any other socials. I'm working on it. And then obviously, if you want to learn more about us, you're more than welcome to check us out on our website, techvestor.com.
Excellent. All right. Well, that's a wrap for this episode. And for the listeners that are interested in wanting to invest with Sabrina passively, I'm going to have a link in the show note for where you can go ahead and do that. So this is for accredited investors only, but great opportunity for you guys to get a share of this awesome asset class. So again, congratulations, Sabrina, on your success, and thank you for what you're doing. And that's a wrap for this episode of the Wealth Building Strategies Podcast.